Hi, this is Bruce Whipple, and welcome to the Business Acquisition Podcast. This is where we talk about how to acquire an already profitable business rather than build one from scratch. In the past 25 years, I've acquired several businesses, and I've also built several businesses from scratch. And I can tell you that it's a lot easier to do the former rather than the latter. You may know me from my association with Dan Pena, who I've worked with and been partners with for more than 25 years. Dan is gracious enough to mention me quite often in his videos, and it's been a real pleasure working with Dan, and one of the few people that I call a true friend. And actually, we've worked on many acquisitions together as well. And even though I said it was easier to acquire a business rather than build one from scratch, that doesn't necessarily mean it's easy. I often say that QLA is simple, but please don't make the mistake of thinking that simple is the same thing as easy. It still requires hard work. Recently, I've had a lot of mentees ask me, how do you stay motivated? How do you get motivated? And what to do when you're demotivated. So a lot of motivation questions. Years ago, I read a quote that really did impact me pretty significantly. And it was, imagine if hell was having to watch an endless video of what your life could have been had you made the effort to make it so. And whenever I felt as if things weren't going the right way, that this wasn't going to work out, that I didn't feel like doing a task at hand, I would go back and read that and imagine that. The other thing that it oftentimes helps to do is just take a look at your situation and take a look at some of the other situations around you. I have a good friend from college who has MS. And when I first knew him in college, he was healthy. He then developed a limp, and eventually he lost use of one arm, then the other arm, was in a wheelchair, and eventually had to have his head tethered so that it wouldn't flop over as the muscles went away. And I remember saying to him that during the first business I built, when I ran out of money, things got tough, I questioned whether it was going to come together for me, that whenever I felt sorry for myself, I would think about him and say, count your blessings. This isn't really the end of the world. This isn't as bad as it appears. And I remember him saying to me, or I said to him actually, that when I think about that, I think about too that I've never seen you depressed about your situation. And he said to me, well, you're not around me all the time, number one. But number two was, he said, the tough part of my situation is that this is the best day physically I'm ever going to have. I'm on a 2% grade downhill, and that is hard to wrap your head around. And it absolutely is. But the flip side of that is I knew that my best days were in front of me with respect to what I was doing. So it's important to put things in perspective, I think. It's also important to think about whether people have done what you're trying to do before and what the success looks like from that, because that gives you the understanding that this is possible. And I wanted to talk about two things there. One, what Dan Pena created in QLA back 25 plus years ago works. It's been responsible for more than $50 billion in wealth created since 1993. I've been a reasonable portion of the success of that as well. So we know the system works. That should give a lot of people the understanding that, okay, this can be done. But I want to give you an example from someone who is in Australia. Her name's Cherie, and she has started a business. I think it's a great business. It's in a sector that is really hot right now. But she doesn't have much experience, in fact, no experience in raising capital. And we began working last year, and I got an email from her this week, and I wanted to read you what she wrote to me. I want to give you also a disclaimer that I'm not going to guarantee that you can have the same success she had, but there's a lot of lessons to be learned. So what she said was, "Hi, Bruce. I'm excited to finally announce that the round of funding officially closed. I have $800,000 in the bank and $200,000 committed by," she mentioned the person's name, "but contingent on signing a lease. Thank you for your support. It was a pleasure and an honor to work with you. I felt confident and capable being held accountable and having you as a sounding board as I navigated a long and challenging process for the very first time. Most importantly, you emphasized to me the importance of preparation. Every single interaction, communication, and touch point with investors was important, and I felt as prepared as I possibly could every single time. It was incredibly valuable to talk about potential questions I could be asked and discuss how I would respond in hypothetical scenarios. You really helped me to work through the process with a positive and success-driven mindset. Thank you for helping me to close this important round of funding and a milestone in the growth and ultimate success of OneRoof, which is her company. Now, Cherie was smart, she was driven, she was focused, and she basically was smart enough to understand, okay, I don't understand this process, being that it's the first time I did it, so let me understand what needs to be done. She asked a ton of questions, and it goes back to asking those questions to make sure you're prepared for the experience you're going to. Now, you can't prepare for every contingency, but many of them you can be prepared for. And I think that one of the things that I learned, it's an old military jargon, although I was not in the military, is that the 6 Ps, prior planning prevents piss poor performance. That's an important thing to do, because if you prepare, if you role play these interactions with investors or with Dream Team members or with financial institutions, accountants, lawyers, all of those will get better if you prepare and role play. For me, that's been very, very strong. The other thing on motivation is a lot of people think they should be working 100 plus hours a week. And if you can do that, great. But you have to keep your mind strong. You got to keep your body strong. A lot of demotivation can occur because of who you hang around with. Less successful people will usually not be a fan of your success, unfortunately. And like the crab that tries to climb out of the bucket, the other crabs try to pull them back in. And it really is true that you become the composite of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So pick your friends and colleagues carefully, please. The other thing is that typically your income matches the 5 people you hang around with. So there's a good reason to hang around with wealthy, successful people. The other thing in terms of motivation is planning is absolutely critical, I think, is that the night before to write down what it is you want to do. Basically, if you have tasks that you know you should do, treat yourself just like any other appointment. Maybe write from 10 to 12, you're going to do this, the appointment's with you, and keep that appointment. But I find if I write down an order of priority, the things that are most important to me to get me closer to my goal, and I write those the night before, and I actually put them in order of priority, I have a much, much better chance of accomplishing those. So that's really important. So I think those are the key takeaways that I have. Understand that not everything is going to work out. You're going to have successes and failures along the way. Celebrate those successes, learn from those failures, and maybe some of the best advice came from an interview that Napoleon Hill did with Thomas Edison when he was inventing the light bulb. And he, at that point, had thousands of things that had failed. And Napoleon Hill said to him, "Don't you feel eventually like giving up? You know, you've tried so many things that haven't worked. Maybe this is just not going to happen." And he said, "No." He said, "I know thousands of things that don't work. I must be getting close." And if you're that committed to the outcome and you just look at these as speed bumps along the way, it's pretty easy to remain motivated, focus on that, and keep pushing forward. Zig Ziglar said, "People often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily." And make sure you do that. Affirmations can be very, very powerful. Read those in the morning, read those at night, and focus on where you want to be and the actions you have to take to get there. And I think if you follow those simple steps, you will find that your motivation is much, much better toward the end result that you're going to achieve, and you ultimately believe you're going to achieve it. Okay, so if you have any questions or comments or ideas for future episodes, please email bruce@brucewhipple.com. And if you're not already on our mailing list, head over to brucewhipple.com and sign up. and grab any of the free reports. That'll put you on the mailing list. There is a lot of free information you can use to acquire already profitable businesses. This is Bruce Whipple. Thanks for listening to the Business Acquisition Podcast. And remember, you miss 100% of the opportunities you fail to take. And procrastination truly is the thief of time. So do something today, please. Your future self will be proud of you.